Please tell us how Enoch Olinga accepted the faith and became deepened in it. Enoch Olinga was pretty young when he became a Baha'i. Already 2 African friends had accepted the faith in Kampala, Uganda. He became the 3rd. But he was the first of his tribe. His tribe was Teso tribe in the eastern province of Uganda. He was not living a happy life. He was drinking most of the time. The best place to find him was to find him in one of the bars in Kampala. His family was in shambles. His wife, he already had 1 son when I met him. His wife was at the point of divorcing him because he was so unreliable in everything he was doing. He was losing his job at the same time, which was a government job. One day, I was driving the car, and Crispian Kajubi, who was the first Baha'i in Uganda, was sitting next to me. And we were going to our home for a few minutes of discussion about the faith. And as we were driving, Crispian Kajubi told me, stop, stop. And then he pulled the window down and called Enoch. Enoch was walking on the sidewalk. He called him, Enoch, Enoch. Enoch looked. He said, come along, come along. This is the man I told you about. Why don't you come? So Enoch accepted. So he opened the door and sat. That was my first time I ever met this dear soul. So I welcomed him, and I told him that we were going to our home, and if he wished, I could drive him to our home, and we'll spend some time together, about maybe half an hour or so, and then I will take him to his office, because I don't want him to be late to going to his office. He was going to walk to his office. So he said yes, and so he came to our home. Our home was the home of Mr. Banani, Mr. and Mrs. Banani. And so we had our first discussion about the faith with dear Enoch. And this thing went on, not every day, but many days during the week. And then a time came when Mr. and Mrs. Banani wanted to go on pilgrimage. And we had this small Baha'i group, not yet an assembly, in Kampala. So we took the decision as a Baha'i group to write Shoghi Effendi and send a letter through the Bananis to Haifa to be presented to the beloved guardian. And the letter stated that we were going to have such a kind of a meeting, public meeting in our home, inviting as many African seekers as possible that we had met, and that we would plan our meeting on such and such a day, which is a Sunday. And we understand that he normally would go to the shrine of the Bab at around 4 o'clock of Israel time, and we will time our meeting at the same time. Our request would be, would he kindly pray for the success of this meeting? That was the substance of the letter. Of course, the Bananis went. One of the first things they did was to present the letter. Shoghi Effendi said, yes, I will do so. I will pray. So now you can imagine what was happening in Kampala. We were so excited. We thought that that's going to be a major teaching, meeting, a proclamation of the cause in Uganda, and so on and so forth. So we arranged for as many of our seekers during this period to all come to the house. The Banani house, or the Banani Nakhjavani house, was the only home in Kampala that had the capacity to receive guests. I remember the room was full. All the chairs were full. People were sitting on the carpet. People were standing. There was no seat, no more carpet. So we started the meeting. Prayer, reading one of the talks of Abdul Baha, a talk on the faith, question period, and the new African believers did not realize how important this thing was. But the only 3 pioneers who were there, because the Bananis were in Haifa, were Violette and myself, and a British pioneer by the name of Philip Hainsworth. The 3 of us were the only pioneers, and the room was full with Ugandans. We were expecting mass conversion. We were expecting everybody in the room to become Baha'i. Shoghi Effendi was praying, we thought, for this meeting. It is an exceptional meeting. The last question was asked. Nothing happened. You can imagine the disappointment of the 3 of us, especially Philip and I, who had now to drive many of these Ugandans who needed transportation back to their homes. We brought them with such excitement, now with disappointment. They are going back home. Well, we came back and were seated together in the room there, and we were wondering what happened. Maybe Shoghi Effendi did not pray. Maybe something had happened. As we were talking, there was a knock at the door. It was dark already. I think it was around 7:30 in the evening, and it was dark. We opened the door, and there is this young man. It's Enoch Olinga. He said, "Do you mind if I come in?" "Of course." "You can come in." "Yes, you can come in." He said, "I have a few questions." I did not want to ask the questions then, but if I may, I would like to ask some questions that I would like to know the answers. So we said, "Of course, sit down." He sat down and he asked a few questions, mostly on prophecies and the verses of the New Testament, particularly about the return of Christ. That was the thing that worried him and concerned him. So we tried our best. We answered. He heard all the questions. He didn't argue. He accepted everything. There was silence. And then he said, "I have one more question. What does one do to become a Baha'i?" I don't think he noticed, and I never checked with him to see if he had noticed or not. I looked at my wife and I saw tears in her eyes. I looked at Philip. Philip had tears in his eyes. I realized I was crying myself. This was the culmination of days and days of hard work and arrangements and this and that, with this one question. I'm sure that Enoch, did he notice? He did not notice. I never double-checked with him. So it was not easy to become a Baha'i in those days. Believe me, the work in Uganda was under the direction of the National Spiritual Assembly of the British Isles. We had no declaration cards of anything, nothing. The instructions of the National Assembly was, if anybody wants to become a Baha'i, he should write a letter to us, to London. There was no local assembly, there was nothing. We were concerned because it was a time when in Uganda there was political turmoil. The local population were talking about independence. They did not want to be under the Foreign Affairs or Colonial Office or whatever it was in those days for a country like Uganda. They wanted independence. So now come the Baha'is and they have to write a letter again to London? He swallowed it. He accepted it, no problem. We explained to him that he should write in his own way a letter expressing his feelings towards the faith as he wants. And all he has to do is to deliver the letter to us and we will send it. He thanked us and he left the room. We were so rejoiced, so pleased that here was this dear soul. In the morning, at 7 o'clock in the morning, there was a knock at the door. We opened the door and there is Enoch. He had written his letter. He delivered his letter in an envelope. We immediately sent the letter to London, to the British NSA, and the answer came very quickly, approving the membership of dear Enoch Olinga. So you see, dear Enoch was the fruit of the guardian's prayer. Although he was the fruit of the guardian's prayer and the third believer in Uganda, but it was just the beginning of the work of this dear man. He immediately began teaching the course, right in his office. He spoke the faith to his close friends. He had a few days of freedom from office work, his holiday. And he went back to his own people, Teso people. He started talking about the faith. You don't know, there is something new faith that has come to our country, he said. And then he started telling them about the teachings of the faith. People were interested, very interested. His parents had died. He only had an uncle. His uncle was deeply interested. His brother was interested. Other people were interested. He wrote us letters immediately by post. In those days, the mail system was very quick in Uganda. And we read his letters. He's all excited. He says, one of you must come here. They don't accept me. They say that we must see one of them. Tell them if they are interested in us, let them come here. So a few days later, Enoch himself came. And he said, this is the situation. So in our little Baha'i group, they said, okay, Ali, you have to do it. Because dear Philip was very busy in his office, and my wife could not go alone. So I was the logical, final choice. So I prepared myself and I went. My dear, what I saw for the first time in this African village in Uganda is something that is so dear to my heart. I cannot tell you. Every single day, meeting these thirsty souls, these ready souls, who drink in everything I say. Ask questions. Again, I talk, ask questions. Of course, at night I was exhausted. But I was so moved. I was praying to Baha'u'llah, grateful to Baha'u'llah, that there were such people in the world who were ready to become Baha'is. And that was the beginning. Now, Enoch became a member of the local spiritual assembly when Rizwan came. Enoch, soon after he became a Baha'i, as I told you, was teaching the cause in Uganda itself, in his office area and his personal friends outside. Then we received a cable from Shoghi Effendi. The cable said that these new believers who have accepted the faith in Uganda, and there were now quite a number of them, I call on them to arise and pioneer. They were new believers to arise and pioneer. And then he named the countries where they should settle. And among the countries was Cameroon in West Africa. We are in East Africa. Who would offer? There was some silence, some thinking, and so on. Some hands were raised. Among them was the hand of Enoch Olinga. And he said, I'm ready to go to the Cameroon Republic. Later, we asked Enoch, why did you choose the Cameroon Republic? He said, it's the farthest away from Uganda. That's why. Anyway, that was dear Enoch Olinga. He arose. Violet and I had the privilege of sitting in the car with him and driving him all the way from East Africa to the Cameroon Republic. Now, the incidents that happened on the way is a long, long story. But it was not an easy travel. Many difficulties. Mechanical, psychological, physical, all kinds of tests. At one point, Enoch had to walk because the car was broken, wouldn't move anymore. And I'm not a mechanic. So Enoch was going to walk to the nearest city. He had to walk 2 days in order to reach that city. And in between, there's nothing. So Violet and I remained in where the car was stuck, and Enoch went. He had a dream after the first day, because later on he told us that he was telling himself, what have I done? Why am I in this country here, somewhere near the Cameroon Republic? I've left my home, I've left my country. Was that right? You know, he had these thoughts. At night, tired as he was, he had a dream. He dreamt that he was in the mud, stuck in the mud himself. Then he saw Shoghi Effendi. Shoghi Effendi came and lifted him up and sat him next to him. He patted him on his leg. He said, I want you to know that I am very pleased with you. That was his dream. Dear Enoch woke up in the morning, remembered his dream, realized that he wasn't tired anymore. He was completely fresh and strong, no problem, ready to go anywhere. And that was a transformation, I think, in the life of Enoch Olinga. Another thing that really changed his attitude was the fact that he was away from everybody, from his friends, from his family, everything. Here he was in the Cameroon Republic, and he was teaching the cause every day, from morning till night. Suddenly, from the letters that he was sending to us, there are now 5 people Now there are 7 people. Now there are 10 people. Now there are 15 people, all young. They have accepted the pictures he sent. All these were reported to Shoghi Effendi. We encouraged Enoch to write to Shoghi Effendi. He wrote Shoghi Effendi. Sent some of these pictures to Shoghi Effendi. Shoghi Effendi answered by cable. He said, I call on the local believers in the Cameroon Republic, all of them young, all of them Cameroonian, to arise and go to the neighboring countries. And then he named them, just as he did in the first instance. But these were new babies. Now, Shoghi Effendi. These people arose. The means were found. Passports were issued. They went. They conquered these countries for Shoghi Effendi in the name of Baha'u'llah. He became a knight of Baha'u'llah because he had arrived in the Cameroon Republic, which was a virgin territory. He became a knight of Baha'u'llah. These youngsters were all became knights of Baha'u'llah. Can you imagine? Shoghi Effendi was so pleased. He gave him a title. He wrote him immediately a letter. He told him that I am giving you a title. You are from now on the father of victories. He was continuously encouraging him. So he was not only a pioneer to Cameroon, he was the knight of Baha'u'llah, now he was father of victories. And then soon after that, Shoghi Effendi passed away. But before he passed away, he sent a message to the Baha'i world, naming the last contingent of hands of the cause of God. And among them was Enoch Olinga, hand of the cause for Africa. Mr. Banani was the only hand of the cause for Africa. Enoch Olinga, William Sears, John Robarts. Now, instead of one hand, 4 hands for Africa. And Enoch Olinga was the first of the 3 in his message. In 6.5 years, this dear soul, from being just a nobody in Uganda, in Kampala, becomes a Baha'i, becomes a knight of Baha'u'llah, becomes father of victories, and the hand of the cause of God. That was Enoch Olinga.